Services, the tax planning team that helps business owners earn more and keep more.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Out of Bounds Show brought to you by Eye Care Professionals, blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery. Eye Care Professionals. Dr. Kirk Jeffries on Lakeland Drive. Also, the show is presented by the Golden Moon Casino. Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. That's right, the coolest sportsbook around. The Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Not but an hour away from here. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Want to welcome in Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider, ProFootballFocus.com. All right, Steve. I got to hit baseball for 1 second. So you played for the San Francisco Giants, got to Double-A. Obviously, you were a heck of a baseball player. I don't know if you know this, but so Mississippi State in college baseball has been really good for years. Will Clark, Palmeiro, then eventually, Papelbon and Moreland, Hunter Renfro's in the World Series. Ole Miss joined the party about 20 years ago, and they've got a hell of a program. So as a former San Francisco Giant, you can't pull for the Dodgers, right?
No, I'm obligated to root against the Dodgers. And I made it to AAA, by the way. I was close.
Oh, my bad, AAA. God, I didn't want to sell you short. Okay. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, it's all good. And I sat in the Major League bullpen twice. That was in spring training. That was I never got in, but I was a Major League player for 2 days. So yeah, I think I have to root against the Dodgers, even though many of my former teammates and guys that played for the Giants eventually went and played for the Dodgers too. You break those ties that the Dodgers are going to pay you, but the Dodgers never paid me. So Giant for life. Gotta root for the Rays.
That's cool. So when y'all were in spring training, did y'all go to the Scottsdale, Phoenix area, or how'd that work?
Yeah, we were in Scottsdale. It was beautiful. I played with the Brewers too, and it was a bad spring training situation, but Scottsdale was perfect. It was a beautiful place to spend a month plus for spring training. Great spot.
Man, yeah, I've been there. That is a beautiful place. All right, well, I just want to get your World Series. That's your World Series update for our listeners from Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com, NFL Insider. Steve, I've been listening to all this nonsense around the Dallas Cowboys organization, and I've gotten sucked into this because of Dak. I didn't never really care about the Cowboys, but so I listened to Jane Slater on the Dan Patrick Show in the Herd. I hear all these other insiders, and it's even more dysfunctional than I thought. I mean, Jane Slater talks about how some of the star players, not Dak, some of the star players who didn't want to be coached hard would go up and around Jason Garrett to the quote-unquote principal, which is Jerry Jones, and just say, hey, I don't want to do this. And they wouldn't have to do it. I mean, I don't know if and the whole you got to keep Kellen Moore, and I know you like him. I don't think it's there. She talked about how Dak has been able to mask some of his deficiencies. I think he's kind of second and 9, second and 8, Kellen, as much as he hands it to Zeke, but maybe not. This place is so dysfunctional. Do you agree that it'll be virtually impossible to win because Jerry gets in the way with the general manager role?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough. I mean, there is something to when you look at 32 franchises, and there are certain franchises that win consistently, even with different head coaches and different quarterbacks, and the consistency that say the Patriots have had, or the Steelers, or the Ravens, and the Chiefs now. I mean, there are certainly organizations that from the top down, there's something to having that continuity from the top down where people are on the same page, right? I mean, in any business. So I think there's something to that. I also wonder with this stuff coming out, the difference between winning and losing in the NFL, especially for the Cowboys this year, is a handful of plays.
Right.
So if they're sitting at 4-2 right now, a handful of plays that flip them from 1-5 to 4-2, or 2-4 to 4-2. I mean, are these things coming out? And so that's where I'm always a little wary. As far as like from the top down, does Jerry Jones have too much power? I don't know. I'm not in there, but the reports, those aren't great. If you've got, the head coach has to have the right amount of control to make sure that the team can be successful. And you do, unless the head coach is the general manager, which is, Bill Belichick only, you do have to have that line in the sand where the GM brings in players. He brings in players the head coach wants to work with, but then the head coach works with them, and that's what happens. So, yeah, there needs to be a better process, I think, there. But, yeah, the reports aren't great. Kellen's young. I don't, I'm back and forth on Kellen. I understand. But I also think in the NFL, the reality is there's really only like a handful of game-changing play callers, say, and the rest are, just pretty good. So it is tough to find like that perfect offensive coordinator that you're just going to be happy with all the time. So I think there's, some of that in there as well.
Okay, well, what do you – for example, theathletic.com had an article this week, Steve, by Michael Lombardi, who has ties to the NFL, and he just walked you through why the Cowboys are so dysfunctional. I mean, the fact that basically Jerry and Steven sat Mike down and said, okay, I know you're an offensive guru and you ran it A to Z at Green Bay. And you could argue that that wasn't always great. But we don't want you to have any part of that. It's Kellen's baby. I mean, I'm almost like, what's his role? Just to kind of get paid a lot of money and hang out? But this article shines a spotlight on he really doesn't run the team. Steve?
But I think on paper that's not a bad decision. I do think from hiring a head coach, I do think we get too caught up in the X's and O's component, right? Like Joe Brady's going to be a head coach someday because he was a great play caller at LSU and he's doing a great job with the Panthers. Therefore, he'll be a head coach. But I think the head coach is more of a CEO than he is X's and O's guru. So the concept of we're going to bring in a figurehead. Now, if the figurehead is a puppet, that's different. But if the figurehead is literally overseeing the offense, overseeing the defense, or letting people oversee those parts, but pulling them together, making the game day decisions, and then motivating players, right? That's what the head coach slash CEO has to do. I think as a concept, that's fine. Now, if it's Mike McCarthy's just a figurehead and Jerry's running the team and Steven's running the team, that's different, and that is a bit more dysfunctional. But again, on paper, the idea that a head coach is kind of the glue between the offense and the defense and the front office and keeping players happy and motivated, that is the role. It's not. I think a figurehead coach is fine. That happens in college all the time.
Sure.
But they have to have the proper power and be, in position to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Steve Palazzolo, NFL insider, ProFootballFocus.com. He joins us on the Parish Cane Break guest line. I guess it makes me appreciate the Saints, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Patriots, and franchises like that even more, Steve. Watching the Cowboys the way I have the last 5 years through all their, really not having an identity and through their dysfunction.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, I think, we work at PFF. We work with all 32 teams, and, they're all clients of ours, and we meet with them every year. And I mean, we talk to them throughout the year, but in person at the scouting combine, we'll sit down with all the teams. And I am always amazed. We give them this incredibly rich data to help them make decisions and what player evaluation and all that stuff. And all 32 teams use it at different levels. Some teams have 15 people pouring through our data to help make better decisions. Other teams have 2, and they don't, and it's, I'll let you guess who does what. But overall, I think, it's 32 differently run organizations, and there are teams that are run better and more consistent. And I do think there is a top-down, there's a synergy between the owner, the head coach, whoever's shopping for the groceries, picking up players. So I think, there's something to that, that consistency and the fact that 32 teams are run, extremely differently.
I want to quote this article real quick and get your thoughts. I know we're going to get into QB play in here just a minute with everything that's shaken out as the season progresses. But here's a quote. McCarthy loves, and for our listeners, we're talking about the Cowboys, Dak, Mike McCarthy. We're visiting with Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com. This article by Michael Lombardi, theathletic.com. McCarthy loves running an offense. He loves calling plays. The game always ran through him operating the offense. In Green Bay, people would tell you that McCarthy was not involved with any defensive preparation, that his sole focus was the offense and making sure it ran smoothly. He set out a year to work on his craft. Steve, you know that. He visited y'all at Pro Football Focus, among other people. And then it kind of goes through and it says, McCarthy watches his team self-destruct, allowing a second-year coordinator, Kellen Moore, one of Jerry Jones's new favorite coaches, and the man who could replace McCarthy one day, call the game. Why would McCarthy agree to this? He likely could have gotten another job. Your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, it's hindsight now. I thought it was McCarthy, saying I will be the head coach, I will be the overseer, and evolving as a coach. Now, maybe he's just done a poor job at it, but why would he agree to it? I just think he went and said, look, how can I be successful as a head coach? I'm going to trust more people. The idea that, he would just focus on the offense and let someone else run the defense, fine with that. I mean, again, I think you see some of that. I think there's only so many coaches that truly can have their hands on both sides.
Sure.
And, again, going back to like a Belichick. But coming into the season, I was thinking, Dak's coming off his most productive season last year. So say what you want about Kellen Moore. Last year, that team was the most productive passing attack, which is the most important part of the game, the most productive passing attack in, Dak's career. So I think from a surface level, you would say, sure, I'm going to roll that back. If McCarthy came in and said, I'm going to run the same offense and I'm going to take control, and which, by the way, he was getting criticized for by the time he left Green Bay, that it was this,
sure,
archaic, and they don't attack the middle of the field and they don't motion, and it's slant flat combo all the time. If he came in and did that, he would take way more criticism, and rightfully so, because I think you have to roll it back and say, okay, Kellen, you had a pretty good first year overall. The overall results were good. Let's see what you can do. And so I kind of respect the decision to let something that wasn't broken last year and see if you could continue to improve it. And McCarthy's decisions from a game management standpoint of, hey, let's pass the ball a little bit more and attack and all that stuff, I think it's fine. I mean, the offense was scoring like 30-plus points a game. They weren't the problem in this equation, I don't think, in the first few games. The defense was an absolute train wreck, and if they could make just a few more stops, we're talking about Dallas with 4 or 5 wins.
Fair enough. You can tell I'm frustrated. Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com, NFL insider on the Parish Canebrake Brewing guest line here on a Thursday. Blake, you are ready to roll.
Yeah, I have a question,
okay.
Steve. So
let it rip, big guy.
You said the passing game is the most important part of the game. I love that because obviously we've been saying that, I feel like, forever. Given Zeke's last 100 game stats, which are not good, and given what we saw Monday night with Andy Dalton, albeit not all on him, but regardless, what we saw with that offense, how much more insightful or inciting of what Jerry Jones did by not signing Dak and signing Zeke is Monday night's game?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if Zeke is taking Dak's money or anything like that, but the bottom line is paying a running back a lot of money almost never works. It doesn't pay off. I mean, we'll see if Derrick Henry, maybe he runs wild. He's had 2 big runs this year in 6 games, and one of them was huge. They won a game. But paying running backs almost never pays off. It's just not worth it. So from that standpoint, it absolutely is a mistake. But at the same time, I don't think Zeke's getting a few millions that Dak would have gotten. So yeah, you have to prioritize the quarterback first, and you have to be able to separate the emotion of the running back stats. Zeke gets all the credit for his stats over the last 4 years, when the reality is his stats are dependent on running behind one of the best offensive lines. And your rushing stats are also aided by having a good quarterback. The Chiefs ran the ball all over the Bills last week because the Bills are afraid of Patrick Mahomes, not necessarily because the Chiefs are, physically imposing and they're going to, they were in one night, but the Bills were saying, please, Patrick, don't beat us. And then the Chiefs said, okay, we'll run for 250 yards. That's the reality of the run game. It's dependent on 6 other things. So because of that, Tony Pollard, if given the opportunity, probably could produce at the same level as Zeke and maybe hold on to the ball a few more times too. So yeah, it's a mistake paying running backs. At the same time, I think it's a separate decision figuring out, the Dak signing and making sure that he's locked up. I think they just tried to play a game with that, and we ended up in this situation, which is kind of brutal.
Yeah, it is. All right, let's go to something more fun, and that is NFL QB play and where we are several weeks into the season. When you look at the duel, but what was your takeaway between what happened between Tampa Bay and Green Bay and Brady and Rodgers? And it was a rough weekend for the Packers, although it looks like Vegas and others think that the Packers are in line for a big bounce back this week. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they're playing the Texans this week, who are, speaking of train wrecks, their defense is not good. And mad Aaron Rodgers going up against the Texans, probably not great. It was fascinating, though. Green Bay gets up 10-0, and it felt like the first few games of the season. Is Tampa Bay for real? I don't know. And then with the Packers, it's like, wow, this looks like one of the best teams in the NFL. And they get out 10-0, and Rodgers is playing great. His first 4 games plus a couple drives, and then he throws the pick 6. And, he just never – that was his first – we have the stat, turnover-worthy plays. So those plays that should be intercepted, bad decisions, even if they're dropped, we'll, give you a big negative for that, call it turnover-worthy. It was his first turnover-worthy play of the year. He's so good at taking care of the ball. The second interception's not really on him. It was kind of a bad bounce. But then he started throwing the ball to safeties and corners. Again, it was a rare game, and it felt like Rodgers he was playing a bit of a front runner type of role. As soon as things went sour, things changed. That offense was not good. And I got to give credit to the Bucs defense. They did a great job. They fly to the football. They've got those physical Auburn corners and Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean who just make life difficult on the outside. So Tampa Bay played a great game. Rodgers played his worst game in, about a year. He's had probably 3 or 4 of those duds over the last 4 or 5 years. And then Brady didn't have to do a ton, but he was very efficient, hitting Gronk with some big-time throws and all that. So I think it showed Tampa Bay can play a complete game, and I think it showed the Packers, as great as they were through 4 weeks, they still have some work to do. And the fact that, old MVP Aaron Rodgers was there for 4 weeks, he just kind of came back down to earth a little bit, even though I do expect him to bounce back this week against the Texans.
Okay. Well, yeah, he could have a big week for fantasy owners, no doubt. Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com. On the Parish Canebrake Brewing guest line, Steelers-Titans, Ben Roethlisberger. These two teams are 5-0. You got this Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown thing going. What are you seeing with Roethlisberger in his late 30s and coming off some injuries, Steve?
He is playing like an Alex Smith type of game. And, it's not a knock. It's just a style. Alex Smith, great to see him back after the injury, but pre-injury was the safest quarterback in the NFL, right? He's not going to turn it over, not going to make a ton of special throws, rely on yards after the catch, that type of thing. That's Big Ben right now, which is not the way Ben has played throughout his career. He's been much more gunslingery and chucking it down the field, and he'll turn it over a little bit, but who cares? He's still moving the ball over time. Right now, he's playing the really safe brand of football, the short passing game. It's the shortest he's been throwing the ball at any point in his career. There's maybe like one other year in there. So he's distributing, right? He's getting the ball to his playmakers. They have Chase Claypool, the rookie wide receiver who's broken out and looks like a monster with his speed and size. So I think Roethlisberger's changed his game a little bit, at least to this point. Maybe he's just getting back in the flow. But he used to be an incredible downfield thrower. That hasn't been there this year. He made a few nice throws Sunday against the Browns. But Big Ben is a little different now, and he's playing a safe brand of football, and it's working for the Steelers. And the thing is, I think he's capable of still making those plays down the field, which makes them even scarier if he starts to unload a little bit.
Wow, that may be the team to keep an eye on because the Chiefs get so much of the headlines with Mahomes. Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider, ProFootballFocus.com on the Out of Bounds show. Tell me, where does A.J. Brown – he is an absolute matchup nightmare and playmaker. Where does A.J. Brown rank with you as far as NFL wide receivers, Steve?
Man, receiving rankings are tough. I mean, grade-wise, he's right. Grade-wise, he's in the top 10 to 15. I mean, as far as mismatched weapon, he's in that top 5. I mean, he's there with DK, with the guy that you just don't want to have to cover. There are different style receivers around the NFL, though. You've got a Nuke Hopkins or Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, guys those are better route runners or whatever it might be. But, as far as instilling fear in the defense between what they can do getting behind the defense or after the catch, A.J. Brown's up there, So we've seen once he got back on the field, Tannehill's efficiency went way up again. And I think that has been a huge factor with Tannehill playing like an elite quarterback over the last year or so of being a starter. AJ's been a huge part of that.
That's incredible. That's incredible what he's done for Tannehill's game. And I'm sure the coaches and Vrabel and everybody else. But and you mentioned DK with Russell. I mean, is there a better match considering the way that Russell Wilson throws the deep ball and what DK Metcalf can do vertically?
No, we said it on draft night. It was, so we ranked our receivers that year, and we had DK 1 and AJ 2. I would have flipped them personally, but once DK goes to Seattle, it's like, okay, well that's perfect because they're gonna use a skill set. Wilson's gonna give them a ton of opportunities, and it's been about as expected. He's averaging 22.5 yards per reception. It's crazy. And from a grading standpoint for us, he's got to catch the ball a little bit better. He's got 4 drops, and he had that ridiculous fumble at the goal line, which we have to give negative grades for when we grade every player. But again, as far as mismatched weapons, like how do you match up with DK Metcalf, knowing that Russell Wilson's going to throw the ball to him down the field and give him opportunities? That instills fear in the defense, and I think that's what the NFL is all about: is putting fear into the defense, whether with one player or a bunch of them. And DK certainly helps that.
Incredible. Steve Palazzolo on the Out of Bounds Show. We got 1 minute, Steve. Your thoughts on Baker Mayfield?
I'm just very disappointed. Very disappointed overall. His 2 worst games were week 1 and then this past week, the Ravens and the Steelers, the 2 toughest challenges in the hump that he's going to have to get over. I'm most disappointed. Very first play of the game, he reads the wrong side of the field with like a simple passing concept. That type of stuff is an issue. Just seeing the field, understanding pre-snap where to go with the ball. They've done a decent job of hiding his deficiencies this year. Again, I still think as a thrower of the football, he's more than capable, but I think the mental part of the game right now is lacking. And I think that's limiting what the Browns can do offensively. And it's pivotal. It's a pivotal year 3, and it's a pivotal next few weeks for Baker to try to get back on track. But he's struggling right now.
20 seconds. They could move on. They may not pick up his option, right, Steve?
They really might not. I think the NFL, finding a Baker Mayfield caliber quarterback in today's NFL is not difficult. So you could see them move on if they look at it objectively and say, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, you can find those types of players right now.
We'll leave it there. The dude, Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com, NFL Insider on the Out of Bounds Show. Steve, have a great weekend. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Steve Palazzolo, who made it to AAA with the San Francisco Giants. I said AA early, and cannot root for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But joining us on the Parish Canebrake Brewing guest line. Try some Parish Canebrake this weekend. You will love it. I wasn't sure that a beer could trump Blue Moon, but those dudes in Louisiana have rolled out a delicious beer. Parish Canebrake Brewing. We'll be back in a minute.